Welcome to Sisters-in-Laws TV. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. And October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, a month dedicated to honoring and remembering our babies who have gone to heaven far too soon. I'm excited to present to you a series on surviving pregnancy loss. I know many of the stories you may hear may be triggering, so press pause, take a break, and come back to hear these powerful stories from sisters-in-laws who have survived pregnancy loss. Welcome to the Surviving Pregnancy Loss series. I'm your host, Erica McAfee, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Marie. So share with us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, my name is Marie Carmel, but please call me MC. I am from Montreal, Canada, so I'm currently up north from you guys. I am a public servant within the federal government, and I have two daughters. One is 18 and the other one is 7. So that's my story really quickly.
Thank you. Well, take us back. Take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your lost story.
Okay. It's always hard to talk about losing children. In my case, I lost twins. I lost twins during the pregnancy. I was 19 weeks and 6 days and a half, sort of thing. So let's just say 20 weeks. So how it started was, first of all, it was an accident we didn't expect. How do you accidentally get pregnant? I don't know, but it was still an accident. So then I felt a little different. I felt like I was hungrier than usual. I was like, why am I so hungry? Because when you're pregnant, you're hungry. But I was extra hungry. So when I went to see my doctor, she's like, okay, there's 2 sacks. I'm like, excuse me? Like 2? Like, what does that mean? She's like, you're having twins. I was like, what? But the thing is with twins run in my family. Fraternal twins, that's usually what is hereditary, and it runs in my family. But I didn't think I was going to be the one, to get pregnant naturally with twins. There was no medication, there was nothing, it just happened. So she's like, one seems to be a girl and I don't know about the other one. So I'm like, okay, we'll wait later. I've always had like an history of difficult pregnancies. With my first one, she's 18. I had her super young. I was in preterm labor at 32 weeks, but I was able to keep her until 37. My second one, Ali, she is 7 right now. And I gave birth to her at 29 weeks. So it was a bit of a surprise because even though you have more than one pregnancy, not every pregnancy are the same. So with the first one, my water broke. So I never had contractions, right? The second one, I had contractions, but the water didn't break. So I was like, what is that? Is that contractions? What is it? So eventually I figured it was contractions. So I went to the hospital and they're like, uh, okay, I think you're gonna give birth, but we're not sure. I'm like, listen, I've been suffering for 24 hours. So I got up to the hospital at 7:20. I gave birth at 7:40 a.m. So I almost gave birth in the car. Okay. Uh, it was a crazy moment. So that one was in the NICU for 49 days. She is right now hearing impaired because of the fact that she's a preemie. She doesn't have any other problems, but I mean that's a consequence of being a premature. So she wears hearing aids. She has some kind of speech delay, but I still treat her like a normal kid. I'm not gonna treat her any different because you have a slight disability. For me, you're my kid. I'm still gonna punish you the same. So in 2016, I got pregnant, like I explained before. So if we skip through knowing, I went to the doctor and then she says you're having twins, etc., etc. So I had little problems during the pregnancy. So I was bleeding and I was always afraid, you have an history of premature labor. You're like, okay. But the thing is that what I didn't like is the doctors didn't take me seriously in the sense that, okay, you had preterm labor before, but let's not revisit. Let's just treat you as if it's a regular pregnancy, which they shouldn't have. I was still seeing my doctor every 2 weeks because it was twins. But the day that I went for my 5 months ultrasound, which when we check, you know, we confirm the sex of the baby, the height, everything. The technician stopped talking. I don't know if any of you is in the medical field, but when you have a professional not talking, I knew something was wrong. So she's like, let me come back. I have to check with the doctor. I knew right away something was off. So the doctor comes back, redoes the ultrasound, and he's like, listen, you're already dilated, so you might have to give birth today. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I'm like at 15 weeks. There's no way I'm going to give birth now. She's like, okay, so we're going to have your doctor come in, because that doctor was an attending at that hospital. So they're like, we're going to do a cerclage. So a cerclage is when they take a cord and they just wrap your cervix, right? Like super tight. So that way the baby can stay. In my case, the babies can stay in. So I went for a regular ultrasound and I had no bags. I had no bags made. I just had myself and my purse and my spouse back then. So we're like, okay, so I'm like, go back home, take care of the alley, do a bag for me, put on, like, just do a bag and come back. So they did the cerclage. The cerclage was under general anesthesia because when I woke up, it was already done. So I stayed at the hospital for about a week. And then they gave me some pills. I think it's progesterone. I'm not sure what it is. Pills in order to relax the uterus. So I'm not, so I don't give birth. So between me knowing that I was pregnant, going through the ultrasound, my cervix was open, right? I did not know this. So for those who don't know, the bacteria in your vagina are normal and non-dangerous when you're not pregnant, but it switches when you're pregnant. I did not know a bacteria creeped up, right? So I was having, after the cerclage, I was feeling some kind of fever. I was always peeing and I was leaking. And I'm like, that's not pee. But I didn't think that it was probably amniotic fluid. So I had an appointment with, as I said earlier, I have an appointment every 2 weeks with my doctor. So I was in between the two appointments and I called the doctor and I said, listen, something is not right. Can I come and see you? She's like, yeah, come and see me at the hospital the next day because I'm on call, so I'll be at the hospital. So by the time I go to the hospital, in the middle of the night, my water breaks. Don't forget, I'm 19 weeks and odd days, and I had fever. I'm not in the medical field, so I didn't think, okay, something is definitely wrong with you, right? So I had a fever, I was leaking, and then my water broke. I started crying because I knew right away it was over. So my spouse called, my ex called 911. So the firefighters came. Firefight in Canada, the first responders are firefighters. I don't know if it's the same. So firefighters came, then ambulance came after. So they checked, they saw, yeah, my pants, like I was wearing like jeans and it was all wet. And I was stressed, I was panicked, I was anxious, my kids were sleeping. The boyfriend back in the days was just like a deer in a headlight. He didn't know what to do. He was super helpless. So they bring me to the hospital. Again, I have no bag because I'm like, I'm above everything. I'm okay. God is good. Everything is fine. No. So he comes after with a bag, right? So I get to the hospital, and this is where it gets complicated because they sent me to an hospital close to me, not to the hospital where I was supposed to give birth. So I get to the hospital, and they're like, we don't have your family to ship you back. You need to go to the other hospital. I'm like, okay. My water's broken. So like, no, because you have a cerclage, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You're not gonna give birth. Okay. So they sent me to the proper hospital. They call back an ambulance, sent me to the proper hospital. Then they put me in the ER. They're like, no, you have to go to the maternity because you're certain weeks. So they basically played ping pong with me back and forth. Maternity ER, maternity ER. So they kept me in the ER and they're like, we're super sorry. We didn't know, like, we didn't know what to do with you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, my water broke. Can you just please check me? And I was already in a state of shock. So again, that doctor stayed silent. She's like, baby A is swimming in almost no liquid. Okay. She's like, baby B is okay. So, I mean, she's fine, but you're gonna have to give birth. So they're like, we're gonna ship you to maternity. So now they're ready. They ship me to maternity. That scene, don't forget, I was by myself. The boyfriend wasn't there. So they bring me to that fourth floor. I remember there was a huge amount of people. There was a huge team. Like, when you watch Grey's or any of those movies or shows, and you're like, there's so many doctors. Why there's so many people? Because my case was special. They were switching shifts, but the people from the old shift, they stayed because they wanted to help. So there's two teams, I guess, a team for twin A, a team for twin B, but there was too many people. I started crying because I felt like I was going through my own funeral because the look that the medical team gave me, it was like, I feel sorry for you. I'm sad for you, but I didn't need it at that time. I just wanted some encouragement and some support. So finally, my doctor comes and see me. She's like, listen, you're going to have to make a decision. We're going to remove the cerclage for sure. However, baby A, there's nothing we can do for baby A because the baby A has been without liquid for too long. So, but what do you want to do for baby B? And I'm like, so I have to make the choice. Do I keep my baby or do I let her go? Because it was two girls at the end. So I'm like, I'm going to wait for my spouse to come. So my spouse family comes. And then I asked one question to the doctor. Actually, I think I asked more than one, but the main question was, can we confirm if the baby's going to stay in until at least 24 weeks? She's like, no, we can confirm that. I'm like, okay, then, so you mean to tell me I have to mourn one baby and I might have to mourn a second baby a few weeks from now? I'm going to have to go through this again. She's like, that's your choice. And I said, me and my ex were like, no. So we decided to let go of the second one. At first, I was not really happy with that decision, but at the same time, I felt it was the right thing to do because I'm someone that truly follows my instinct. And if my instinct tells me to cross the street, I'll just do it. I don't ask any question. But at that moment, with everything that was happening, I was just, what am I supposed to do? Am I making the right decision? Is God's mad at me? Why am I losing my kids? I'm going through all sorts of things at the same time. So they removed the cerclage. And then it had that smell, that minced meat that's like expired for a few days. She's like, oh yeah, that means you had an infection. It's because as soon as they removed the cerclage, they smelled it, and I was like, oh, even I smelled it, right? So I gave birth to the first one. That didn't take long. I mean, 19, 20 weeks is not, so I gave birth to the first one. And then the second one was harder to push because she was way up there and she was okay. The infection had not reached her sac, but it had reached her first one. So they're like, we have to wait a little bit. So I'm like, can I hold the first one? So I'm holding the first baby. They're both born alive. So 20 to 40 minutes later, I'm not too sure how many minutes, because it was a bit, I was sort of like in the clouds. So I wasn't truly, watching the time. So the second one comes out, like everything is fine. And then I asked the doctors, can you make sure that they don't suffer? Because I know they're not going to stay alive. I mean, they're too small. He's like, no, we're going to give them something to make them comfortable. Sorry. We're going to give them something to make them comfortable. Like, okay. So I'm holding both of them, and they confirm, yeah, you have an infection, but we just need to do a biopsy or whatever else they got to do to make sure what it is. But right now, at this moment, was making sure the placentas came out. Believe it or not, the placenta did not come out after an hour and a half. The doctor tried to pull it. It didn't work. I was in and out of consciousness. I didn't know what was going on. People came and talked to me. Like to give an image, it's like you're lying down the bed and then you see the light. then the lights turns off, then you see the light again, then you see people, and then again. That's how it was, just like in the movies. You think it's not real, it is real, So they're like, we have to rush you to the OR because you're losing way too much blood. That's the reason why you cannot stay conscious. I'm like, do I have a choice? No, because I'd already signed consent way before, like, okay to give blood, okay to take me to the, like, all the things just saved my life, right? So they rushed me to the OR. The doctor, I remember the doctor said, hi, my name is doctor. And then they put this mask on my face. Then I was out. So, and from the maternity ward all the way to the OR, I was still having contractions, but the contractions was getting stronger and stronger. And I was like screaming in the hallway. And I'm someone who's has a high tolerance for pain. But at this moment, my pain was like a 20 on a 10. An hour, you're trying to remove the placenta, and I'm having contractions stronger and stronger because the body knows, okay, this placenta needs to come out. So they removed the placenta during that surgery. And then I wake up and I knew it was over. I felt empty. There was no more contractions. It's the same thing as if, when you empty your bladder, you feel empty. It's the same thing, but it was different because I felt my soul also was gone with the twins, right? So with the placenta out, it was as if nothing happened. And then I had to have 2 units of blood transfusion. And then they put me in a room. But in front of that room, there was a butterfly. So when the nurse would come in, they would know that I don't have my kids with me. So they're always coming. They always say, oh, so where's the baby? You know what I mean? So whatever. So after the surgery, after I was up and okay, I asked to see my girls. So they're like, they said, we have to go check them because they're in the fridge. So I was like, okay. So they brought the babies back to me and they were cold, cold, as if I was holding a bag of chicken legs coming from Costco. It was just like, these are my kids, these are my blood, and they're cold. They're like, yeah, we have to put in the fridge to make sure that they don't. I'm like, okay. So I keep them with me for 45 minutes on me, both of them on me. And I think I cried so much. I asked for forgiveness. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I felt it was my fault. My body is like not able to keep babies. Like, I'm sorry I made you suffer. I was really begging for forgiveness. And then 45 minutes to an hour later, I felt it was time to go because I felt them getting hot, right? So, I mean, they were on me. So I knew logically that they had to go back to the fridge. So the nurse is like, I need to take them. So the nurse takes them away. So I'm in my room by myself. And honestly, I was contemplating suicide. That was the moment where I was like, I just lost my kids. I'm an unfit mother. Let me just die right there because a piece of me was gone with them. So there's no point. My other kids have their fathers. They don't need me. I was really in that state of mind, right? And I asked God, oh my God, if I'm supposed to be here, I'm supposed to be alive, please give me a sign because you know what? I'm at the right place to die. I'm going to be on the fridge next to my kids. The next day I had a sign. The next day I had people coming over, bringing me my favorite things. And I was like, whoa, that's a huge sign. I guess it was a time for me to go. So after the sign, the doctor comes and see me and explained to me what happened. What I explained at the beginning was the thing with the bacteria. So a bacteria creeped up. So they said I had an infection of the amniotic fluid. So it was just a question of time for the second one to have that infection. And they told me I made a right decision not to keep the second one because the same thing would have happened. It was just because they didn't know at first. If they would have known at first that there was an infection of the liquid, the amniotic fluid, I mean, this is what they swim in, for sure they would have said, you know what, you can't keep them. So I made the right decision. So after I left the hospital, I was in a huge depression. Like, when someone says, I've hit the bottom of the barrel, I understand that now because I've literally hit the bottom of the barrel. All I was seeing was black, black. Open my eyes, close my eyes, black, black, black. It was darkness. I was in total darkness. So for 6 months, I laid in my bed, not moving. I wasn't eating. I wasn't moving. I was barely washing myself. I didn't care. Didn't brush my teeth. Nothing. Nothing. At one point the kids wouldn't even come in, they wouldn't even come and see me in a room. I was, at first they came to see me, but at the end they were like, okay, no, we're not we're not gonna come because you're, first of all, the room smells because you're not washing yourself, everything is in the dark, you're not doing anything. So basically it took me 6 months to get, do you truly get over this? I don't think so, but to get myself out of this darkness, it took me a good 6 months, a minimum 6 months to 1 year. So a month after, the only time I actually got up was for the funeral. So I had a funeral because I'm Christian. So we had a funeral with friends and family, and it was the worst image ever to see that little casket, because I decided to put both the twins inside together with a blanket with a picture of me and the father and little toys so they could, be okay. It was one of the worst things, was to see that little casket go down under. That was one of the, like, this image, wow, it's on my brain forever. I cannot even erase it. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Wow.
Story,
So
but
take us
wow.
on how you really navigated the next parts of that journey, after, you came home, you had the funeral, how did you really get out of that depressive state that you were in?
Um, it was actually some of my friends on Facebook, because some of the girls that are my friends, they went through this. One from the United States, because I'm in Montreal, but I have friends all over the world. But I'm like, this particular one, I think she lives in Utah or Idaho. I don't remember where. I think that's close, right? So um, she sent me a journal. She said, write everything in there. Write like, don't hold back. Just write everything that's on your mind. And I was writing. That helped because when you hold so much toxic inside of you, it has to come out, because eventually it's going to explode, and then the damage is going to be too great to even try to pick up the pieces. So I was writing down what I was feeling. There was also this group in Quebec, in Montreal. It was like an um, I'm trying to translate it, but it's not easy. It's like parents that are orphan, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like a, not twist of the tongue, but it's kind of a word that they're playing. They're playing with words. So in a nutshell, it was like parents of angel babies. Okay, so I went in that group, and we just start talking, and I was like, whoa, I'm not alone in this. Because when you're in that situation, nobody around you understand, nobody knows what to say. I've had people not talk to me for months because they did not know what to say. Because it's easy to say, I'm sorry you lost a family member, but it's not easy to say, I'm sorry you lost your pregnancy, you lost your twins, you have no memories, all you have is images of what could have happened, so you have nothing to hold on to. But when it's an adult, your mom, your father, your brother, whoever in your life, you have memories to hold on to, because they had a life, right? So they don't know what to say. It's a super taboo subject. So I went in that group, and I'm speaking to some of them now. We were basically talking almost every day, just to be able to share and say, hey, I'm feeling this way. And the person answers, I'm feeling the same way. It felt so good to hear that, because if you tell another person, oh, I'm feeling this way, and they're like, sorry, I don't know what to say. They never talk to you. They avoid contacting you. No text, no phone calls, nothing. You know, even my own mother did not understand. She comes from the Caribbean, so their way, her culture is very different. So after the funeral, she literally told me, and I kid you not, she said, now that you buried your kids, stop crying, read a book. I was like, in shock. I didn't cry for 1 month, because every time I wanted to cry, I would stop myself, because I would hear my mom say, stop crying, read a book, you buried your kids. Like, it's time to move on. But I still cry sometimes. So how I went through this, it's with the journal, talking to friends, and deciding. I actually decided to stay alive. And I'm like, and that takes a lot of a lot of guts, a lot of willpower to do that, because I could have easily just slowly killed myself. Not suicide per se, but not eating or doing little things just to let yourself go. Um, that could have been another way, not to take care of yourself or do it on purpose to get hit by a car. And like all these thoughts came up in my mind, no joke, right? So after writing the journal, after talking to some people, after I actually also went to therapy. I specifically chose a psychologist that knows about grieving, because not every psychologist knows about that. They all have their specialty, and I made sure this one understood debt. And it wasn't even infant debt, but just debt in general, because not everybody's comfortable. So she really helped me. And after that, I went to the public system, and she also helped me. And she also helped me being able to express myself to my family members. Like my daughter, Ali, was like 4 or 5 back then, 4 years old. So she didn't really understand, because she's like, oh, you have a baby in your belly, now you don't? Like, I don't get it, right? My older daughter, she understood. And I decided to stay alive. I decided to say, you know what? I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to die. My kids will not die in vain. Yes, a part of me is gone with them, and they will forever be gone, but I know they'll forever be with me. And I decided to always talk about it. I decided to, like, you know what? I'm going to bring awareness, because if I'm going through this, someone else is going to go through this. Maybe one of my kids, hopefully not, but anybody around me can go through this. And I said, maybe that's why I didn't die that day. Maybe that's why I'm still alive. Maybe I have to bring awareness. Maybe I have to become an advocate. And when you check on my Facebook, I write pregnancy loss advocate. I have no problem talking about it. I have no problem explaining to people, listen, because of some people have come and talked to me and say, what do I tell someone who just lost their baby? I said, this is what you got to do. Be yourself, be honest. Tell them, listen, I'm here to support you. I don't know what to say. Don't say I understand what you're going through, because you don't. Unless you've gone through this, you cannot say that. And some people automatically say that because they're not comfortable with silence. When it's silence, nobody likes that, right? So they have to fill it with words. So saying, I don't know what you're going through. I'm here for you. If there's anything within my limits that I can do, and it's important within my limits, because the person can ask you something very weird and you'll be like, I can't do it. And you're like, well, yeah, but you offered to help me. So you have to stay within your limits, whether it's getting food or even bringing something or just sitting. Just sit with me. And if I cry, just lend me your shoulder so I can just cry. Anything that could be helpful. So I do believe that's the reason why I'm here. It's to have to bring awareness to people, um, and to make sure that all the babies that were lost, whether it was early pregnancy, middle, the end, within the first year, it doesn't matter. A loss is a loss. This is what I tell people. I lost my twins at 19.6 and a half. It still counts. They were born alive. I had give them names. I buried them. That cost me money. So you know what I mean? Um, so this is what I did. It's it's really deciding to just stay alive and work for it. So I had a goal by saying I'm staying alive. I start eating better. I start eating with the family. I start going out. I start washing myself. Those little things you take for granted, like taking a shower, brushing your teeth, things I wouldn't even do back then. I do it, and then I start enjoying it. So this is what I did to be able to go through it. And am I really over it? No, you never get over it. I've just learned to live with the pain side by side. The pain is not my enemy. Now, if I feel like crying because I'm looking at a pregnant woman, then I'll cry and I won't hold it in. So this is how I'm also coping with this. I mean, they passed almost 4 years ago, and this sometimes I still go through little phases, but I'm like, MC, just go through, because the only way out is through, right? So don't hide the pain. You don't feel good, you don't feel good. It's okay not to be okay. So just go with the pain. You feel like crying at that moment because you saw a pregnant woman, cry. So this is how it helps me every day to go through this horrible situation.
So how do you honor your twins in this moment? We're taping this during October, which is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So
Yeah.
how do you honor your girls during this month or just during any other time of the year?
um I honestly, I've been to the cemetery once after I buried them, um because I didn't I didn't want to go. Like honestly, I'm like I'm going. I went once after, and then I never did. But I speak to them every day. This is how I honor them. I don't do the physical thing, buying a cake and stuff like that. To each their own. They can do that, but I do it by talking to them every day. This is what mom is doing. I'm thinking of you. Sometimes I dream of them. So my way of going through it is that's all I do. I honor them by talking about them. I honor them even if it's October 15 or this because they pass on December 29. So either it's October 15 or December 29. I honor them during that day. Um, that's all I do. I don't complicate my life. I don't do anything physical. I just think of them a lot. And I pray for them as well. I pray for me and I pray for them. So this is how I honor them.
Absolutely. So, how are you surviving pregnancy loss?
How do you survive pregnancy loss? It's by talking about it when you feel like it, going on about your day, not I don't avoid talking about them. If their twins come up in a conversation, I'll talk about them because some people will be like, "Oh, let's not talk about this subject." Like they skip it. Skipping it, it's like not even acknowledging that they were alive. I had to tell my father because my father thought they were born dead, and I'm like, "No, Dad, they were born alive." He was like, "Oh, wow." So I talk about them. If I see someone going through something, I'm like, listen, I understand how you're feeling. I've lost twins like a few years ago. If you need to talk, I'm there. So I'm always here for people who wants to talk about it because they sometimes people don't have anyone to speak to. So I've had people saying, "Can I give you your information? Can I give her your information?" I'm like, not a problem, just make her. And I've counseled. I don't want to, because I'm not a counselor, right? So I can just talk to people, and I say counsel with quotes because I would listen to them. I would give them advice based on my experience. I cannot invent the wheel, so I'm basically just saying, "This is what I did. Try it for you. If that doesn't work, we'll do something else, right?" And these women, after maybe 6, 7 months, 8 months of talking to me, sometimes less, I would never hear from them again. So they come in my life and they leave, right? So this is how I honor them. I've also wanted to write a book about this because I believe people should. This is something is still on my mind, and I also want to do like a foundation because just to bring more awareness because it's such a taboo subject and more women are going through this. Many women are going through this in silence, and it shouldn't be. It's as important as losing any other member of your family. And I feel as a woman, I mean, we're not made, yes, we're created to procreate. I get it. But if you want a child and you're having problems having a child, shouldn't you have the support, not just the scientific support, but also moral and emotional support? This is what I want to give to people. I've talked about this for a long time, but I've never done it because I don't even know how to start a foundation. But I do want to start that. I want to start that just to mostly like in Quebec, there's one organization that talks about it. One. That's not a lot. Quebec has not many people. Just I don't know about the rest of the country, but just in Quebec alone, there's one organization that talks about pregnancy loss. Why? But when there's any like I can name cancer society, it's all over. I don't want to compare cancer with losing a child, but I'm just saying there's many foundations for cancer, there's many foundations for any other thing, but losing a child is not a subject they really want to talk about. And it should, because we're North America, we don't know what we eat, we're in a stressful environment. Any of those little things could be a reason why we lose our babies, pregnancies, or whatever. So I believe what I want is to make sure that this subject is no longer a taboo subject. We can talk about it anytime, whether it's at work, whether it's at home during a family dinner. It has to be something that people can talk about as easily as talking about politics. Because people can talk
Absolutely.
about politics all the time, right? Why can't we talk
Hmm.
about pregnancy loss? Isn't it part of life? So I believe this is what I want to do. And that's why I always talk about it. I post about pregnancy loss. I post about my twins. I post about sometimes I do statistic, not all the time, but I try to do that as well. I just don't let it go taboo. And I also advise people of my limits. This is also how I go through it. Um, If someone makes a pregnancy joke, I will delete you. I will no longer speak to you, because I've advised many times, and I'm not a parrot. I don't have to repeat myself. Your freedom of speech ends when my boundary starts, right? So this is the reason why my daughter, Alisa, sorry, I don't know how she's Sherry. Oh, she's saying hi. Yeah, that's the preemie. So when they tell a bad joke about pregnancy, I tell them, listen, that was very insensitive, because I lost twins, I lost babies. You don't know who you're hurting. So that's why we have to educate. We have to bring awareness. And this is what I want to do, bring awareness and educate people. But at a certain point, sometimes I have no tolerance for ignorance. So if after I tell you, don't do that, and then you do it, I'm not going to advise you twice, because I will always be sensitive to that subject, and I will always be sensitive to whoever's going through this. You know what I mean? It's like a little club you don't want to be part of. And then you're part of that club, right? So I don't know. It's I don't like when I hear when women go through this. I don't like it, because it really brings me sadness, because it takes me back to how I felt. You know what I mean? Like I'm not over, like I said earlier, I'm not over losing my twins, because you never get over that. And even if I get pregnant again, a new pregnancy is not going to make me forget about my twins. I will still honor them. You know what I mean? By talking to them, by thinking about them, praying for them, not praying with them, but praying for them. I do that. This is on a daily basis, always, always. I'm like, I just want to make sure you're okay wherever you are. I really loved you. Like I'm all. It's as if I'm begging for forgiveness to my twins that passed, because I for a long time I felt super guilty. I felt it was my fault that I lost them, but I learned after a few years that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't. It happened, but it still shakes you a little bit, because you feel, okay, me as a woman, I have a uterus and I can't even carry my baby to term. But stress and everything else. But that case, for my case, it wasn't it. It was just an infection. But not many people know about these infections. Maybe many people don't know that that could be one of the reasons why your child or your baby, your fetus, has passed. So this is how I honor. This is how I will honor them. Hopefully I will be able to do that foundation, just to bring awareness. That's what I want to do. If people wants me to talk about it, I'll do it, because people needs to understand, with words, with images, with feelings, with a human being talking in front of them, that yeah, women lose their babies all the time. It's not the first time, it's not the last time, but can we please support them and bring them some mental stability, mental rest? Just being able to sit next to someone and that person just listens to you, or just says nothing and you just lean and you just rest. Everybody should have that. Everybody.
Absolutely. So where can we connect with you after this?
I am on all social media. I am on Facebook under my full name, Marie Carmel Bien-Aime, but my name is going to be written somewhere. So I'm on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm under, my handle is Sweet MC. Twitter is the same thing, Sweet MC. LinkedIn is my full name. But if you find me on IG, you'll find me everywhere else, because I usually post on both. But I post a lot on my Facebook, which is my full name. But if you just do Marie Carmel, Marie, capital Carmel, you should find me with my picture. But this is where I post most of my stuff, and people are always free to send me messages. I check my spam and my a lot, because I get many messages from strangers, and I try to check every 2 days, because otherwise sometimes I get messages that are 6 months old and I'm like, ooh, sorry. So I usually answer to everybody who's not a creep. This is what I do. I'm available
Awesome.
for everyone if they want to talk. French, English, mostly if someone is from the Caribbean. Like my origin is from Haiti, so I know how Asian people are. It's very different from the typical person of color from the States or from Canada. It's different. The mentality is different. So I get it, because I've lived in all of it. So I can also help someone from the Caribbean who has lost and they want to talk, if they have no support, obviously.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you to start that foundation because I know it'll be a blessing to
I have
the
to. Now that it's out
yeah.
there, I have
Yeah.
like, it's not the first time, right? So I have to be held accountable. I just said that on a recording. So I need to start. Yeah, I want to start it. I want to start. And they
Yes,
probably will
I
have their name.
know. I know it's going to be a blessing to the ladies that are in your community in Montreal, but also just because of the far reach that you have, being able, because you are Haitian, you do speak French and Creole, that you can be able to reach people who really don't have the voice and give them the
Mhm.
voice to share their stories and be more empowered to spread more awareness. But thank you so much, MC, for being here. This
It's
was
my
such a
pleasure.
pleasure.
I'm so happy we're finally able to do this because I felt I needed to share this. Like I said, when there's an opportunity for me to talk about my story and for me to bring awareness, even if it's to one person, changing one soul at a time, this is what I want to do. Just one at a time. I can't change the whole world, but you can change it one at a time. So,
Yes, we can. Well, thank you so much, and I will
my
talk to you soon.
pleasure. Yes.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.